The lake had no name on any map. It lay hidden beyond a stretch of rotting pine and fog so thick it felt alive, curling between branches, smothering sound. No one came here anymore. The dirt road that once led to its banks was swallowed by weeds decades ago. Even the locals didn't talk about it, not out of superstition, but out of exhaustion, like a wound too deep to prod again. They said that sometimes, when the air was still, voices could be heard drifting from the lake's heart, soft, pleading, almost human. Some claimed it was wind over the reeds. Others knew better. Long ago, there had been a mining town beside the water. Men and women built homes of pine, raised children, and worshipped the lake for its stillness. Then, one winter, the ground opened. The mine collapsed, taking 23 souls beneath it. The survivors left in silence. Within a year, the town was gone. The fog remained. Every few decades, someone wandered too close. That night, she did. She carried a lantern, its small circle of light trembling in her hand. The forest whispered as she passed, the sound of wet leaves and quiet warnings. Her boots sank into mud, the smell of iron and decay rising with each step. She didn't flinch. The first sight of the lake stopped her. It spread before her like a mirror turned toward nothing, black and perfect. The fog hung above it in motionless sheets, swallowing the horizon. She walked down to the water's edge, the boards of an old pier groaning under her weight. The lantern's light barely touched the surface. She took out the photograph. The edges were curled, the colors bleached by time. In it, a man and a woman stood smiling in front of this same lake, sunlight glinting off the water. Now the photograph was all that remained of him. She stared at it until the fog blurred their faces together. Then she knelt and dipped her fingers into the lake. It was warm, not the cold bite she expected, but the heat of blood. She froze. The ripples widened outward, slow and deliberate, disturbing the reflection. It wasn't her face that looked back.
The fog grew thicker, swirling like it had purpose. The reflection smiled. She stumbled back, heart pounding, the photograph slipping from her hand and fluttering onto the boards. The face in the water followed her movement, the smile growing. Then came the whispering. It didn't come from the forest or from behind her. It came from beneath the surface, a low murmur building into 1,000 overlapping voices. They didn't call her name, but she understood them all the same. She stepped closer. The lantern flickered, throwing the world in and out of shadow. Something moved beneath it, a shape sliding through the water. The voices rose, pressing against her ears, against her mind. She peered down and saw outlines, pale, human outlines, suspended just below the surface, drifting as if in sleep. Their eyes were open. The photograph slipped from her fingers and floated for a moment before sinking. The ripples reached the pier. Something touched her ankle. She gasped and stepped back, but her foot wouldn't move. The wood beneath her seemed to breathe. A low hum filled the air, deep enough to shake the bones in her chest. The lantern tumbled from her hand, shattering on the boards, scattering sparks that died instantly. The light went out. In the dark, she heard movement, not in the water, but behind her, in the fog. Footsteps, slow, wet. She turned, but the mist was too thick. The footsteps stopped just beyond sight. Then, a voice. His voice, soft and familiar, rising from the lake and the fog and the air itself. "You came back." She fell to her knees, shaking. Her hands found the boards, slick and pulsing beneath her palms. The air smelled of copper and soil. The whispering grew louder, each word blending into the next until it became something like a heartbeat.
The fog swirled violently, drawn inward, downward toward the center of the lake. The water began to move. The reflection of the moon shattered into 1,000 shards of silver. She tried to run, but the mud at the shoreline caught her feet, holding her fast. Her hands clawed at the soil, but it was no longer soil. It was water, black and thick, pulling her down. She screamed, but the sound barely broke the air. The last thing she saw before the surface closed above her was the reflection of the moon, steady once more, and a figure standing where she had been, lantern in hand. By dawn, the forest looked as if nothing had happened. The fog lifted. Birds sang. The lake was perfectly still. Then, from the center of the water, something floated to the surface. A photograph, its edges curled and damp, showing a man and a woman smiling in front of the lake. The photo lingered a moment longer, then sank. The ripples spread outward and were gone. The lake went on keeping its secrets, waiting for the next name it would never speak. Waiting for the next name it would never speak. Waiting for the next name